Imagine waking up 40,000 years ago. You're cold, you're hungry, your last meal was yesterday, and somewhere in the distance you can hear something enormous moving through the darkness. You have a spear. A few other people are with you, and the animal you're thinking about hunting could kill you. So here's the strange question. Why would you do it? Why would ancient humans deliberately go after animals that were faster, stronger, and sometimes much more dangerous than they were? It seems like a terrible idea. But ancient humans weren't simply walking up to giant animals and hoping for the best. They had a reason, and they had a plan. Because for most of human history, getting enough food wasn't as simple as opening a refrigerator. There were no farms, no supermarkets, no storage warehouses. If you wanted to eat, you had to find something to eat. You could collect plants. You could gather fruit. You could dig for roots. You could dig for roots. You could catch smaller animals. Or you could hunt. And hunting had one enormous advantage. One successful hunt could provide a huge amount of food. But it also had a huge problem. The animals could fight back. Imagine finding a large animal. You are hungry. Your group needs food. But the animal is looking directly at you. It has enormous muscles, sharp horns, large teeth, or powerful tusks. You have a wooden spear. It isn't exactly a fair fight. And that's where things become interesting. Because humans didn't win by being stronger. They won by being smarter. But before we talk about how they hunted, we need to understand something important. Hunting was risky. Very risky. You could spend hours tracking an animal and come home with nothing. You could waste energy. You could lose a weapon. You could get injured. And if you were badly hurt, you might not be able to hunt again for a long time. So why take the risk? One answer is simple. Sometimes there was a lot to gain. A large animal could provide an enormous amount of food. Meat, fat, blood, and sometimes something even more valuable. The animal itself could become a collection of useful materials. Its hide could become clothing or shelter. Its bones could become tools. Its tendons could become strong cord. Its teeth and tusks could become objects or equipment. So the goal wasn't always simply, we need dinner. Sometimes it was, this animal has something our group needs. And there was another possibility. Ancient humans didn't always have to kill an animal themselves. Sometimes they found an animal that was already dead. Maybe it had died naturally. Maybe it had died naturally. Maybe another predator had killed it. Maybe the predators were still nearby, and humans could sometimes take advantage of that opportunity. This means the line between hunting and scavenging was probably much less simple than the movies make it look. Some groups hunted, some scavenged. Some probably did both. And different humans may have used different strategies depending on the environment and the animals around them. But eventually, humans became extremely capable hunters. And one of the most impressive examples is the mammoth. Mammoths were enormous. Their bodies were massive. Their tusks were huge. Their hides were thick. And compared with one of these animals, a human looked ridiculously small. Imagine standing beside a mammoth. Its legs are taller than you. Its body seems to fill your entire field of view, and you're holding a wooden spear. Honestly, it sounds like a terrible idea, but archaeological evidence shows that humans did hunt mammoths. At sites in the Arctic, researchers have found evidence consistent with mammoth hunting, including damage to mammoth bones associated with projectiles and evidence of fresh meat use. And there is an interesting detail here. Not every mammoth hunt necessarily happened because humans were desperately hungry. Sometimes the animal itself was the resource. Its ivory could be useful. Its bones could become tools. Its hide could provide material. Its meat could feed a group. One enormous animal could provide an incredible amount of useful material. So from the perspective of an ancient human, a dangerous animal wasn't just danger. It was also opportunity. But hunting something dangerous created another problem. You couldn't do it alone. Imagine trying to hunt a huge animal by yourself. You have one spear. The animal has 4 powerful legs. You don't know which direction it will run. You don't know when it will charge, and you can't watch every direction at the same time. One person is vulnerable. A group is different. Now one person can watch the animal. Another can watch the escape route. Someone else can move around the side. Another hunter can signal when to move. Suddenly, the group becomes much more powerful. And this requires something humans are unusually good at: cooperation. Imagine 10 people hunting together. They need to know where everyone else is. They need to understand what the others are going to do. They need to control their fear. And when the animal suddenly changes direction, everyone needs to react. not randomly. Together. That requires communication, memory, timing, trust, and experience. A successful hunt isn't just 10 people attacking an animal, it's 10 people following a plan. And when the hunt succeeds, everyone can share the result. That can strengthen relationships within the group. So perhaps dangerous hunting wasn't only about food. It may also have helped humans become better at working together. Think about how much modern human life depends on cooperation. Building a house requires cooperation. Running a hospital requires cooperation. Flying an airplane requires cooperation. Launching a spacecraft requires cooperation. Humans are incredibly good at organizing groups of people around a shared goal. And that ability didn't suddenly appear in modern civilization. It has much deeper roots. Maybe part of that story began with a group of hungry humans looking at a huge animal and realizing something very important. We can't do this alone. And there's another thing a successful hunter brings home. Not just meat, information, where the animals are, when they move, which paths they use, where they drink, how they react when frightened, which direction they usually escape, which places are dangerous. A successful hunter learns all of this. And then, that information can be shared. A younger person can watch an experienced hunter. They can learn which tracks belong to which animal. They can learn how to read the landscape. They can learn when to wait, when to move, and when to run. This means hunting knowledge doesn't disappear when one person goes home. It can be passed from one generation to the next, and that changes everything. Because now the next generation doesn't have to start from zero. They inherit experience. They inherit mistakes. They inherit successful strategies. They inherit knowledge about the animals around them. Over thousands of years, that knowledge can become incredibly valuable, and humans weren't just learning from successful hunts. They were learning from failures. A broken spear teaches you something. An animal escaping teaches you something. A dangerous charge teaches you something. A bad decision teaches you something. Every mistake becomes information, and that may be one of the most important differences between humans and many other predators. We can remember what happened. We can talk about it. We can imagine what might happen next. And then we can change the plan. That's where the spear becomes less important than it seems. A spear is useful, obviously. But a spear doesn't decide where the animal will run. A spear doesn't tell 10 people where to stand. A spear doesn't remember what happened during yesterday's hunt. And a spear certainly doesn't teach a child how to hunt. The real advantage was the brain behind the spear. Humans could watch, remember, communicate, plan, and imagine. They could look at an animal's tracks and think about where it might go. They could look at the landscape and imagine where they could corner it. They could wait. They could move. They could change their strategy. And sometimes, they could simply decide not to attack. That part is important too. Survival doesn't mean taking every opportunity. Sometimes the smartest hunter is the one who looks at an animal and says, "Not today." Because the goal wasn't to prove how brave you were. The goal was to survive. And if the animal was too dangerous, too strong, or too difficult to catch, walking away could be the smartest decision. So why did ancient humans hunt dangerous animals? Not because they were fearless, not because they wanted to fight giant animals for fun, and probably not because they didn't understand the danger. They understood the danger extremely well. They had to. They hunted because dangerous animals could provide enormous rewards. Food, fat, hides, bones, tendons, tusks, tools, and sometimes simply an opportunity to survive another day. But the hunt demanded something in return. Planning, teamwork, communication, memory, patience, and courage. Patience and courage. Over time, these skills could become more important than physical strength. That's the strange story of our species. We weren't the fastest animals. We weren't the strongest. We didn't have claws. We didn't have huge teeth. We couldn't outrun most large predators. But we could work together. We could remember. We could teach. We could plan. And we could imagine what would happen before it happened. A tiny group of humans could stand in front of an enormous animal and somehow have a chance. Not because the humans were stronger, because they were organized. And maybe that's the real answer to the question. Ancient humans didn't hunt dangerous animals because they were reckless. They hunted them because they had learned how to turn intelligence into survival. The spear was only a tool. The real weapon was everything behind it. The plan, the group, the memory, the communication, and the ability to look at something much stronger than yourself and think,